we're going to be looking at doing greetings card designs. What we're going to do is have our clean plates and we're going to start painting our wreath now. Right, well, it's easier for us to start at the top. So we've got a selection of berries along here, and we've got a twig, and then we've got the rose hips. So you're going to need a cadmium orange or a nice orangey colour. Doesn't really matter what colour the rose hips are. They, you know, obviously some rose hips are red, some are orange. These two leaves, so this leaf here, which I've stylized, represents this bright red acer leaf. Okay, this one over here represents the vine that I sent you in the photograph, which is also a bright cherry red, and it had blueberries or almost black looking berries. So this will also be a red leaf. So we'll have so when I do a design, I'm trying to think about what colours are going to be in the arrangement. So I've tried to keep the colours simple. So we're going to have a deep red leaf here, deep red leaf here. We've got a nice ginkgo leaf. We could make this a variety of colours. I'm going to make mine sort of a peachy golden colour. Okay, but it does go bright yellow. You could have it. It does go lime green. It goes obviously through stages into terracotta. So there's a full spectrum of colours. So I've got red, a golden orangey colour, repeated again. Red for the berries, and then we've got a golden browny colour for the oak leaf. So I've got a fairly restricted colour palette. Oranges, reds, browns. So I'm starting to mix up some orange on my plate and then a nice red. Don't need to rush in too much yet with the red. So interestingly, the red for the berries would be a cadmium red because we want them to be strong and opaque. But the red for the vines, for both of the vine leaves, or this one, as I say, is an acer, this one is a vine, it's more of an alizarin red. And it's entirely up to you. So I will probably be using alizarin as a base because it's a nice, cold, clear red. And then I might decide, well, I'm going to tweak it slightly. I might go and add a bit of quinacridone magenta to it, or perhaps a little bit of purple to it. So I've got a bit of a, oh, my purple's very strong. So, in fact, my purple's way too strong, so I should probably wipe some of that away. So there you go, look, I've got this really lovely red wine colour now. So that's my alizarin predominantly, with a bit of pink. So it's got that really nice sort of pinky red colour. And if I wanted to lift it a bit more, then I got some red over there. Okay, so you can see all these lovely colours working really nicely together. We'll start at the top. We'll have the light source coming from above for these rose hips. So I'm using a small brush. I've kept my pencil from my illustration. I've used a HB pencil. The design's quite clear, so that you can see it on camera. But if you were tracing this image up for yourself, make sure you use a HB pencil or 2H pencil if you didn't want the pencil work to show. So you don't need to panic too much. I'm just giving a little wiggle of water just to give me a bit of a head start. Okay, so I know that I can just start to drop in a bit of orange. And then I'm immediately picking up a slightly different, darker colour. Just tapping it in. Just like we did in our practice one. So we're getting a really nice sort of golden colour. And then you can just spend your time working around, getting a lovely little shape that you're happy with. And if you go over, don't worry about it, just tidy up the edges and just have a slightly larger rose here, it doesn't matter. So this one, I've left a little gap. I'm going to go slightly closer because there's another rose up above it. I need to make it look as though it's in shadow. So I've picked up a brown and I'm dragging it up against it. Okay, but I have left the tiniest amount of a gap. It's about 1 millimetre to stop the there we go, I'll tap it, might be able to see a bit more clearly. It's to stop the two from running into each other, because I want to make sure that they look distinct. So none of the rose hips are touching at the moment. And then I can just wipe there just to make sure that I've got that halo. Make sure I've got the white paleness on the top. There you go, and that one underneath, so that they look nice. Right, and then I'm going to let that settle now, and then we'll do the other little bit. So we're going to start to come down. I've also drawn in some, they look a bit like the helicopter sort of, is it the sycamores? But these are the seeds that go with the acer, and they are the same colour or a slightly brighter. Doesn't really matter, because this is our design and the way that we're working. Doesn't really matter what the colours are, as long as you're happy with what it is. And we could just paint this in with a pale wash. It's sort of orange squash in consistency. Okay, I'm not wetting the surface because it's such a tiny little shape. I'm just going to fill it in with my little brush. Just filling it in, and a little bit of it comes on there, like that. And then I've dragged it so that there's a tiny little dark spot at the bottom, so it goes down. Doesn't matter too much. Now we can do the one behind. So because we want this seed head to come forward and that one to recede, we need to change the colour slightly. Otherwise, they're just going to look the same. So always think about, when you're doing lots of little things and little seeds and things, about very slightly changing the colour. It'll make it more visually interesting. So here we go, and I'm painting the next one behind. I'm going to leave a tiny little gap. I'm not going to paint it, so that I want to avoid, I don't want to touch the shape here. Otherwise the dark colour is going to bleed into it. So make sure you leave a little gap. Stuck a millimetre or half a millimetre, you know, just get as close as you can to the shape without touching. Okay, and then we'll go back and touch it up. I mean, we're doing it because for speed. Okay, if I was taking my time, I'd probably let that get bone dry and then move on next to it. Okay, but we're speeding things up here. And then I'm just going to make sure I've got a nice little fine brush, and we're just going to draw a line for where they connect. And again, they're the same colour. You can see it in the colour of the acer leaf. It's just a lovely bright cherry red colour. So I'm just picking up. I've gone down to just a small brush, or any brush you do as long as it's got a fine point. If you didn't have a small enough brush, you could use one of your watercolour pencils. If you had one that was a bright red, obviously or even a pencil, just make sure you have it really nicely sharpened. And then you can just say, right, I'm just going to pull it down there, pull it down there, pull it down there. There you go. And there's another one behind there, but I'm just waiting for these two to settle before we put that one in. We're now going to do this lovely acer leaf, okay? And it's a fairly flat leaf, okay? There's not that much movement in it. I'm not really going to be super botanical about it. The main thing is to fill it in with a nice bright red colour, okay? I'm using alizarin as my base colour, and then I, depending on what colours you've got, I've added a bit of pink, magenta to mine. But if you don't have that, if you just add a bit of cadmium red, tiny dot of cadmium, or an orange to your alizarin, lift it slightly and to see until you've got a nice red colour that you're happy with. So I'm scooping up the light colour first, and I'm just going to drag it down. There we go. I'm just pulling it down, just like I was before with the other. Yeah, I'm just pulling it down. And then on the other side, I'm just going to change the colour slightly. Oh, no, I'll just flood it actually. And what I can do is do this. That will make you can easily see it there. So you can have one colour on one side and one on the other if you wanted to, or say just fill the whole sheet in. And I'm going to naturally stop at the vein, which is just on this cusp on this corner here. That's it. And then I'm just going to repeat the process over here, and I'm just going to lighten the colour just slightly. Really doesn't matter. And if you notice on the Acer leaf that I've got in front of me, it's got a jagged edge. Okay, I'm not attempting to do that edge because I thought it's quite a small leaf that we're doing, and I thought perhaps some of you wouldn't find that much fun to do, so I've kept it flat edge. But what will be nice is to make sure you've got this nice wavy line coming down. There we go. So they're now meeting, and again going down, so there's a natural vein in the section of it. Okay, so because we're all going back to the same point, it's all making sense. I've got time to wiggle this shape, so I'm happy with it. So I'm now actually probably going to go slightly darker again. Now I did a slight speck of my Wings of Purple, which is an incredibly strong colour. So I'm getting a deeper colour because this bit of the leaf is at the bottom, so it's got to be more in shadow, I suppose. But I want to make sure I've got a nice wiggly edge. There we go. I'm just pulling it down, and as I say, go back up to the centre. And then we've got some little tiny ones on the edge. So I'm changing the colour again. And I'm just pulling it down into there. There we go. So now I can come back up here, and because I've left it well, you say on this leaf you've got all these lines coming down, and we're picking up the colour, flicking it all down so it joins. There we go. Dragging it all down and down to a point. There we go. And there we are. There's the leaf done, and we just need to pull a fine line down, just dot it in. And do a nice light pressure. There we go. So I'm not worrying about doing lots of little fine veins or anything on it yet. You could do if you wanted to, because of the way all the colours seeping and doing things. I want to let it settle and see what it does. Okay. These, if I need to do any amendments, as long as I let it get bone dry, I can do it. Okay, because we've got some of the water flooding up into these first two here, so I will see how that dries. Right, so while that is all settling, we can go up over this side. So we're going to need to paint some twigs and some berries. So let's mix up a nice dark brown. So you want to go to your burnt umber, and because it's the twigs, we want to have them quite strong. And if you feel that your umber's a little bit too warm, it's entirely up to you. If you pick up a little bit of navy blue, add it to your burnt umber, okay, it's going to look cooler or colder. We're going to need a small brush. You might actually just use my hand. Yeah, I'm going to put my hand over the acer if I do that. So I'm going to leave the twigs. I'm going to come a little bit further down, and I'm going to come over to this side. I'm going to go. Let's go over to our oak leaf. So our oak leaf, you've got loads of choices of what colour you can have your oak leaf. I think I'm going to have mine sort of brown with the bits of gold in it, so I can still use my umber, I think, on its own, perhaps a bit warmer. And then I can pick up some of the orange or cadmium yellow and add it to it so it gets a bit more muted. So rather than having a dull brown oak leaf, mine's going to sort of be changing. So this is, I am not going to pre-wet this with water, okay? So let's start with the dark colour. Well, I am. You don't have to. Entirely up to you. And then there's a patch here that's dark. But I do now need to scoop up the colour and add it to it. You do tend to get a better effect if you, in all honesty, if you pre-wet it with water. It just gives you a little bit of breathing space. It takes the panic out of it, and you won't get harsh lines. Let's just have a bit lighter here. I have to go and get myself a drink in a minute. So I'm just pulling the colour out, and every now and then I'm just changing the colour. And it sort of just runs into it. There we go. Let's put a bit around there. So it's completely made up what I'm doing. Now changing to yellow. And I'm just joining all the edges up. And this, by doing this, I've got a nice little suggestion of an oak leaf with lots of nice little colours on it. And you can see I've actually left a slightly little gap, hinting of a vein down the middle. You don't have to. It's only because of the way it was blending. Okay, you can just very gently like that. There you go. There you go. I've got a nice little oak leaf. Let's go down to the ginkgo leaf down here. What colour should we do the ginkgo leaf? Let's do it a sort of golden yellow colour. And we're sort of repeating the sort of reds, oranges and gold colours. It can blend from one into another. It has that really nice terracotta hint to it. So what I might do, yes, if you add a nice strong pink to your yellow, you'll get a nice terracotta colour, but it will glow. So here's my yellow, and there was my sort of magenta colour, and I've added the two together, and it's made that really lovely peach colour. It gives it more glow. And you could make the ginkgo leaf just all one colour, or you could say, well, on one side it's slightly more yellow on hints of it. Or I'll probably use my number 6 just because it's got a better point, but it doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, so I'm just dropping in the colour, and I'm flicking downwards because I want to have a serrated edge for our ginkgo leaf. And I'm gonna just because I feel like doing it, I'm just going to try it with a little bit more gold on the edge. Oh, it's got a little bit there. Let's just do that little tap. And by sort of pulling it down and flicking it, we're getting the texture coming for the leaf. That's how just pull that down there like that. And then let's just pull that again. There we go. If I wanted to suggest the lines or the grooves in the ginkgo leaf, I'd probably have to let this get a bit more dry before I attempted to add any lines to it. We can have some red berries, but I'm going to make them a little, some of them a bit ribena or red currantish, or a cool berry, because the colour palette that we're using is quite cool. The berries down here in the vine, if you remember, are purple or purplish black berries. So these ones are black down here. These are the red ones up here. So in order to keep our colour palette going, the other when this is settled, the other leaf that we're going to do on this side is a very similar colour. So we want the red of the berries to tie in with these colours. We've got a triangle of red here. Red, red, red. Sort of the yellowy gold, yellowy gold, yellow. So it's sort of repeating itself in the way that it's travelling around. So I'm going to pick up some alizarin crimson, and then I'm going to pick up some red. So it's going to be reddish, but sort of a deeper colour. And then I might use my burnt umber to dull some of the alizarin a little bit in some of the berries. Sometimes berries look a bit brown, so we're keeping them nice and rich, if you know what I mean. And it's going to be really in a random fashion. I'm going to change down to a small brush. Make sure I don't touch anything. So don't forget when you're doing your berries to leave a little gap for where you want the highlight to be catching the little berry. Okay, you don't want to fill it solidly in. So I'm just working my way around, curving it round, no particular order. Okay. Traveling around. Just concentrate on getting a nice little circular shape, and then perhaps the ones towards us, we could perhaps lift the colour ever so slightly. So think about the colour of the berries. Which ones do you want to come forwards? So you might not have them a little bit of a, I don't know, have the paint a bit of a thinner consistency or slightly lighter, okay? So you get a good circular shape that you're happy with. And then say, well, I'm going to change the colour of one over here. So let's just do this one here. So this one's behind, so I might add a little bit of brown to the berry. So this will make the berry a little bit duller and also make it recede. Okay. And then the one in front I want to make slightly lighter, so it's not got the brown in it. Okay. And some of, my berries are odd shapes. They're not all, some of them are a little bit bigger, some of them are a little bit smaller. Main thing is just to go around until you've got it happy with the shape that you want. Put it round. There we go. And then we've got, let's make that one a dark one. So again, all my little berries, there's a tiniest little gap so that I can keep the form so one colour doesn't run into another. Filling them in. I'll go a little bit brighter now. So this colour that I'm doing is sort of tying in with the colour of the acer leaf opposite. I think it needs to be quite as big as that. And then I'm changing the colour again. So just by sort of picking up tiny little bit changes in colour, it just, you know, makes some of them lighter, some of them darker. So it makes it visually a little bit more interesting. And that one's looking quite dark, which is quite nice. And you can see all I quite like that to be darker. So I'm just tapping a little bit of purple in this one then. I might tap a little bit in that one there. So I'm just kind of on. Yeah. So I've just picked up this full colour, and again we want to make sure we've got some little bit of a halo. So I'm literally just doing a little, like a little C, and drawing it at the top. Well, U shape, and just very trying to travel around really small with my little circular shape. And you can make some of them look quite blue actually if you wanted to. Entirely up to you. So there's the same colour but very slightly diluted a bit more, making them a little bit lighter. It doesn't really matter too much, it's just to make it interesting. The main thing is to concentrate on getting a nice shape for your berries. So some of these berries that are beginning to come towards now are next to each other, or one's in front of another. So what would be the safest thing for you to do would be to paint one, move on, and then come back once the one berry is dry. And then that way you maintain their individual shape rather than one running into another. So I'm going to dilute, because they're so tiny, I'm going to dilute my stop painting, and what I'm doing is I'm picking up exactly the same colour, but I've just diluted it slightly so it's not quite so dark, just to get some variation. And just going around in circles with my little brush. Until you've got the colour that you like. If you think, oh, actually that's too light, I'll just dab it with a bit of stronger colour and it'll spread for you, and then that's job done. So I'm just pulling the colour around in a little circle. There we go. This one here. Now that that's drying, we can go back up to the top. While that is settling down, and we can go around here. So, right, so the end of the rose hip, well, this one looks quite mucky. It's entirely up to you what you're going to do. I think I'm going to make mine the brownish, blackish colour, I think. So I'm probably going to just add a little bit of, while we've got it on our plate, this colour here. I'm going to use that as a basis and perhaps make it a little bit more brownish. I'm not going to paint it neat with a small brush. I'm not going to pre-wet or anything, but I do need a small little brush. So if you just add a bit of orange to that purple colour, you're just going to get a dark brown or purplish brownish colour. Okay, so now that I've done that, I've got my small brush, and I'm very sort of scratching the surface Very light pressure, pulling it down like that. And then I'm just with a bit of water, just pulling that. Just flicking that, just make it a little bit more interesting. There we go. And then we've got another shape there. So I'm just hatching it in really. To put the colour. That's better. There we go. Now I'm going to try and tease this shape up. I'm not happy with that shape, so what I'm going to do, I just ease there. So now we've got this, the twigs around the top, which could also be brown, going into, we've got lots of choices with these berries. They could be on red stems if you wanted to, they could be on black stems if you wanted to. Let's have a think about it. These ones are going to be on red stems, so perhaps I'll make them on the black then, brownish blackish colour. So let's start off by doing the branch that's coming round and going in behind the rose hips, and then we're pulling the rose hips down. So there's actually going to be a little bit of a hint of green, isn't it, with the rose hips? We can pull it down into browns because we don't have much green round in the arrangement. As I say, orange, gold and red colours coming through, so we can do a little bit of a hint of a green, but not too much. So I'm going to start doing the twigs. So I've literally got a burnt umber, which I could cool down. I might cool down with a little bit of blue. So I'm using my number 6 brush just because it's got a really nice point, and it's, as you know, it's my favourite brush I tend to use all the time. But you could use a smaller brush. And I'm literally just going to fill it in. So there's my twig, which comes down there, like that. And I'm just pulling it across like that. And I want it to be a little bit stronger. So I'm just picking some colour up again, and I'm going to feed the bottom edge to make it a bit stronger. So I'm just touching it at the bottom. I'm just tapping it, and touching it at the very bottom only. There we go. Getting nice and twiggy like, and then I'm going to touch the bottom edge of the twig there, and then just pull it down. Right. I might pull, so this bit actually could come down, and this twig could be part of the sprig of the berries. So I'm just painting it directly with a light touch, joining that up like that. Lightest pressure, getting these all connected. There we go. Oh yeah, we've got another branch which I've just missed. That goes there. And out there. And then we've got it coming through here. So I'm just dragging with the side of my hand, pulling it up. Might put a bit that way. And you can go as much or as little as you like, really, until you think it looks splintered enough, I guess. Does that need one there? Possibly, perhaps. Yeah, okay, I'll put one in there. Now this one's behind, so I am making this one a bit darker. So what I've done is touching it and it's spreading for me. I might put that on darker as well. And a bit there perhaps. And perhaps a bit there. Try not to do it all over. So let's have this lovely red vine. So I've got my alizarin crimson and I'm going to add a bit more red to it. So I'm just mixing up my colour. So if you add, even if you've got opera rose, if you add a bit of opera rose to your cherry red, that'll make it sing even higher, even more. Okay, so I've mixed up my colour, which is slightly brighter. And it's up to us. We can either have it as a flat colour or we can do a variation as we did with the first Acer leaf. So I'm just picked up my colour and I'm just wiggling it in and I'm just dragging it down to the point. Just pulling it down. And these leaves are jaggedy and wibbly and doing all sorts of things. So I've stylized it and simplified it. The main thing to think about with these leaves is that as long as you pull it all back to a center point, so just to make this look a little bit more different, I'm just adding a tiniest bit of orange on this edge, and then I'm going to go back to the pink, the red, just to make it a bit more eye-catching. And then I'm just putting the colour down. And then this one here. And back to the centre, just dragging it down. Not that way. With a bit of a brighter colour on the end. I might just dot a little bit there. Make it a bit textured. And a bit on the top there. Just to make it a bit more interesting. There we go. So it's done in a fairly random fashion, doesn't really. We can go back up to the top now. This is beginning to settle. I've got a twig there, perhaps another little spirally bit. I could probably touch up a little bit more around here, and I can pull down here for the stem of the rose hip. So the stem is a greenish colour, so we will be starting. So I'm going to mix up a little smidge of sap green. But as you know, they always look too pure, these greens sometimes. I don't really want it to be pure sap green. I'm going to contaminate it a little bit, so I might just pick up a little bit of a cold green to it. So it's the sap green and a slightly cooler green, and then I might contaminate it with a little speck of brown to it, just to make sure it's a natural looking green and not a garish, bright out of the tube green. So what have we got? We have got a little line there, And we've got a little line there, and we've got another one there. I'm just pulling it down. By doing it this way, I get a nice arc. And then I've got some leaves. So, well, the all leaves are all good enough. I could have them green, they could be sort of yellowy green, perhaps a little bit of yellowy green, and then that way it suggests that they're about to drop. So we'll do that. We'll have the leaves green, but we'll also have a bit of yellow in them as well, dotting in. Really doesn't matter too much. I'll probably do the tips yellow, make them just essentially patchy. Okay, so now that that is joined to the stem, I'm just going to tweak up a little bit of a yellowy colour and just put it into the leaf. So it suggests that the leaves are turning, and I'm just tapping in the yellow colour just to make sure that it's clear that they're sort of about to drop. I happen to have done these. I mean, obviously, some rose leaves are quite rounded, but I've just made mine with a pointy top. I haven't particularly done a close observation. I've just done this for the design of the wreath, so you know. I'm just going to pull in a bit more colour. Boom. Pop it, just tap it in. That looks okay. And oh, I think there's a bit of a leaf there on that one I drew. And there's one there. So let's pick up some yellow. Like that. Oh, and there's another rose hip behind. So we can now, because that's all bone dry, I'm just going to pick up a orange, and it's going to be a dirty orange. So if you've got orange, add some brown to it, or add some purple to it so it goes a bit dark, but it's rich. So if I do that and fill it in, the brain can fill this in and say, oh, that's another rose hip behind. Okay. And they realise it's in shadow because it's a deeper colour behind. And then where I've left these little white halos, because I didn't want them to touch, you can just say, right, I'm just going to colour that in with the golden colour. There you go. And I want to keep them nice and bright and golden looking, so I'm just going to touch them up with a bit of cadmium yellow, and I'm just very lightly wiggling it on the top. And can you see how it's boosting the colour a little? Just making them a little bit prettier, a bit more eye-catching to the eye. So it's a wiggly second glaze. If I was doing it as a proper second glaze, I'd be taking more time doing it, but it's such a tiny area, you don't need to worry about it. We've also got another sycamore seed, and that essentially needs to be that sort of red currant colour, but because I've got lots of other colours on the page, I can fill this in now. And it's going through there. I don't think you can, yeah, I suppose you could see another bit on that side. Sort of like that. So that's beginning to settle quite nicely. So I'm now going to go to my magenta colour, and we can paint in the stems for the berries, because they're that lovely bright cherry red colour. So we don't need the consistency to be too strong, but we do need a small brush to keep with our small brush. Now this is dry, so that means I can go back and paint these berries, paint on top of the berries, rest my hand and have no fear of smudging. So this is a cranberry colour. So I'm just pulling with downward strokes with my cranberry red colour, joining up my berries. There we go. Join that up there. Okay, so let's do this last little section here. So we've got lots of options. I think it would be balanced if we went back to brown again. So I think we'll go sort of brown twiggy things and perhaps a little bit more gold. So I'm going to warm up these branches because we want to keep this sort of golden palette going. So I am just using my burnt umber, perhaps some beginning to go slightly orangey looking. Okay, and I'm just drawing lines at the moment. Like this. We've got another line there. Like that. And just sort of making them up a little bit. I am following my illustration quite fairly closely. It needs another one going up there. Yeah, it definitely does. So let's do one going like that with a little flick. Yes, that's what it needed. And I think we could do with another one crisscross going down there. And do we need one? Yeah, I think we need one to go down like that. Join that up a bit more. And then you can feed. This is beginning to feed. Well, I'm deliberately feeding some of these points just to make it interesting by tapping in. Yeah, I think we can put a bit more in there actually. Tap it in there. And tap it in there. Yep, quite like that. So we've got these little sort of suggestions for leaves at the end, and they could be any colour. I think we might do them a nice, perhaps some of them orange and some of them yellow. So we keep the yellow going, so it's heading into the ginkgo leaf colour. So we'll do some of them as little yellow shapes and some of them orange. It's entirely up to you. I might make them slightly more orangey. And you can say, right, I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to press down and then pull it towards the tip, and then I might just change this one slightly. There we go. Should I get a shape that I'm happy with? Just tweak it slightly. There we go, that's better. I'm going to go slightly weaker consistency this time. You don't have to, but I just think when you're painting little shapes like this, if you have changed the consistency of the watercolour, so sometimes it's quite strong, sometimes it's really quite weak. You can get quite a lot of variation in the same colour just by how strong or how weak the colour is. So some down here I'm just making more orange. No particular reason, I've just decided to. You don't have to. Entirely up to you. And this one's actually quite a large shape, so I might leave it as a large one actually. Just finish off the edge, just tap in the colour. Yeah, I might make that one a bit bigger. And I think we might do a little one in the middle, I think. Let's do a little one here. Oh yeah, I've got a little one there. So what I would be doing now would be let this get absolutely bone dry, and then once it's absolutely bone dry, I would get my rubber and rub out all the pencil marks and then touch up as necessary. So for example, if you decided you wanted to do another layer on top of these leaves to spruce them up even more, you could do that if you wanted to. I don't think it needs a leaf there. I know I have drawn a leaf there, but looking at it, I don't think it needs it. And there's our little autumn design all finished.